Tales of the Paddock. There was once a little girl, and she liked to sit in the corner of the yard outside her house, in a very special private corner where the sun shone, and she would spend ages in that corner playing. Every afternoon her mother would bring her out a bowl of milk and bread, and she'd sit there and she'd eat it. Now, one day as she was sitting there, from a crevice in the wall, there came a snake with a black head and black, coal-black eyes. And he slithered over to where she was sitting, put his little head into the bowl of milk and bread, and started to drink and started to eat. She was intrigued. She was amazed with this little creature, and when he turned round and slithered back into his hole, she clapped her hands with delight. Now, as little girls do, sometimes they have secrets, and she never told her mum or her dad about this. And day after day, as she sat in the yard in the afternoon with her bread and milk, then that little snake would come out, slither across the yard, and drink the milk and eat the bread. But one day, when he came across, he put his little head in, and he drank, but he wasn't eating any of the bread. So she picked up her spoon, and she gently tapped the little snake on his head with the spoon. Unfortunately, her mother just happened to glance outside the kitchen window, and there she saw a black snake with coal-black eyes, and her daughter with a spoon tapping it on the head. She picked up a log from the log basket, she ran out of the kitchen at great speed, and she beat the snake to death. Well, the girl who had up until that time grown tall and strong, with laughing eyes, she started to pine. And it wasn't long before the funeral bird was singing his song, and the robin redbreast was gathering twigs and leaves for the funeral wreath. And within a few days, she was lying in her coffin on a bier. Around an aged town, there was an aged wall, tall, made of stone, with a gateway, and it was through this gateway that the traders would come every morning and leave every evening. And beside this gateway, an orphan child would sit and spin, hoping to make a few coins to help her on her way through life. Now, as she was sitting there one day, beside her, from the crevice in the wall, came a frog. And the frog hopped across and sat and looked up at her. She was surprised, and she looked at the little creature and reached down into her pocket and pulled out a blue silk handkerchief. This was the only present she had had from her mother before she died, and she smoothed this blue silk handkerchief and lay it down beside her, and the little frog hopped onto it. Now, the little girl didn't know that blue silk is a very special material for frogs. And the frog hopped over and cocked its little head and looked up at the girl, and the girl looked down at the little frog. And off he went, back into his crevice. And as she sat there, wondering and thinking, out he came again, and in his little mouth he held the most exquisite, delicate, tiny little golden filigree crown. It was a beautiful little item, and he laid it down in the middle of that blue silk handkerchief, looked up at her, and hopped back into his crevice. The little girl picked it up, she looked at it, she felt it, she held it up to the sunlight, and it shone and it shone. She was so pleased with it, she slipped it into her dress pocket. And as she did that, out from the crevice came the little frog again, over to the little blue handkerchief, on, and looked around. He looked around, and if disappointment could be seen written on the face of a frog, it was there. He couldn't believe that the little crown wasn't there any more. He hopped back again towards his crevice, but he didn't go in. He hit his head against the wall. He hit it again. He hit it again and again. And he went on doing so until all the strength left his body and he lay dead on the floor. Oh. Now, if only the little girl hadn't put the crown in her pocket, who knows what other treasure would have come out from behind that aged wall. Ribbit, ribbit! Ribbit, ribbit! The girl heard a noise. Come out from there! Have you seen my little sister? Have you seen little red stockings? No, I've not seen her. Well, no, nor have I. Well, in that case, I'm like you. Ribbit, 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 ribbit.
It wasn't